Welcome to Real Life and Real Estate. My name is Nikki Robbs, and I am your local real estate agent serving Tacoma, Puyallup, and beyond. And a lot of what I talk about here is real estate related, but I really do like to mix in real life situations and real life interests. And if you have followed for the last year, I've had 2 episodes about books, and guess what? Today is going to be about books. Now that the year is over, I can look back on my trends from 2024 and I can clearly see that there are some things just to hit me and I love them and they stick with me and I fall in love with a new writer. And then other times, like, I don't think I can take any more of that. I equate books to food. Books are just one of those things. They feed my soul as much as they feed my brain. And I think you need to have both, and there needs to be a balance. I went through a season in 2020, 12, I think, where I read so much nonfiction that I felt I just couldn't contain anymore. You know, when you're just going, and like, I can't do anymore, and please make it stop. So I started to embrace something else. I gave myself permission to read fiction. And I know that sounds really silly, but I, for some reason, felt like fiction was not adult, not serious, and not respected, which was just such a crazy thing to think. Anyway, so let's talk books. Or I guess I get to hold you hostage while I talk about books, but I will keep this limited to just some of my favorites, right? Last year, I talked about a few books that have captivated me for more than a year. And I think that's a really good threshold to use for this one as well. Otherwise, you're going to get 2 episodes about books and then 2 episodes about real estate. And that's the way it's going to be. So looking back on 2024, I read and listened to, I'm a big audiobook fanatic because I do spend a lot of time driving. I read and listened to 38 books. And when I was looking at them all to try and create some kind of a top 10 list, I couldn't do it. Because even though a book may have gotten a 5-star rating in the moment, the day I finished it, because I try, sometimes that rating didn't stick over time. You know, here it is 9 months later or 6 months later. I just don't feel as strongly about that book. So with the passage of time, I think the clarity on which books are real winners and which were just okay, they settle out for me. So I really like to rate most of books. And in 2023, I think, maybe 2022, they're starting to run together, guys. All the years are running together. Recently, I was challenged by an author to actually write reviews, not only for other people to be able to see reviews, but mostly for my own processing. Because if we're just constantly consuming material and never processing the material, then how good is it really? If I read a bunch of nonfiction books, but I don't apply them, or even say, this benefited me here, or even consider where can it be applied, if neither of those things happen, then how good is the book? Not very good. Yeah, so things should be applied, or they should be discussed, or they should be considered. So I started writing reviews. Now, I don't write reviews all the time, but I did find that if something was really wrong with a book, I'm more likely to leave a review because I just wanted to get it out of my system. Like, I didn't like that plot, or I didn't like the way it ended, or I didn't like this topic. I have a deduction system of it. Everyone starts with 5 stars and then I deduct half stars and quarter stars for different things that I don't like about it. Some of it can be language. It felt choppy, the flow of the language or the use of the English language, especially if it's a translation, things like that. It can also be too much description, not enough description. All kinds of things can influence why I deduct stars off of a review. So it's pretty rare for anything to get 5 stars. That being said, I gave out 13 5-star reviews in 2024. Now looking back, not everything needed 5 stars, but they did sit really well with me at the time. So let's start at the beginning. Gosh, A Gentleman in Moscow by M.R. Tolles. Still to this day, I think that is one of the most brilliant books that I have read, and I will probably think that for about 5 years. Usually when I find an author that captivates my interest, and it captivates my imagination this strongly, I will read everything they've done. Olin Steinauer. If you mention that you have read something Olin Steinauer, we are going to have a discussion because I love that author so much. There's only probably 2 things ever that I didn't care for. Ever. So Immortels wrote A Gentleman in Moscow, and I judged the book by its cover for years. It was at Costco for a while. This book came out in 2018. It's not a new release. And then I saw the movie trailer, and it starred Ewan McGregor. Like, well, Ewan McGregor doesn't make terrible choices in movies, so it's probably worth my time. Holy cow. It was amazing. It was everything I love, all wrapped into one, with a beautifully complex language. It wasn't boring in any way. It was just fantastic. Hands down, best book I've read in a while. And now my battery's running low, so we're going to pause here just 1 second. Now that I'm plugged in, I can continue. So there's a book that has stood the test of time. Obviously, it's not a new release, so if you have read it, bravo. I would love to chat about it with all the parts you liked or that you didn't like. I would love to hear if you have seen the miniseries that was created. I loved it. I felt that it was very true to the book, and they kept a lot of the important things by making it a miniseries and not making it a movie. Very important because they had enough time. Right? When you're taking a great book and you're crunching it down to 2 hours, 2.5 hours, maybe, you have to lose a lot of the book. So miniseries was absolutely the right choice. I loved it. Another fantastic book was Business Made Simple, 60 Days to Master Leadership, Sales, Marketing, and so much more by Donald Miller. I am a big Donald Miller fan, and so why not, right? I'm running a business. I got to find out what he's got. So I would absolutely hand that book to anyone who is starting a business. It was a little bit difficult to apply in my situation to a few things, but it did give me a lot to think about, and it gave me a lot of tools, or sometimes just reframing to look at sales, marketing, and everything else, because sales and marketing are 2 pieces of the same, I think we said one is the wing, one is the engine. You have to have both. You've got to have everything, right? Your back office stuff, your finances have to be in order, your business structure has to be in order. So I really did enjoy the book. I didn't apply a whole lot of it. My other 5-star that has stood the test of time, some of you will laugh, Persuasion by Jane Austen. Now, I'm pretty sure I have read this before, but I got a hard copy this year, and so I had to read it again. Whoops. I'm pretty sure I read it on Kindle about 12 or 15 years ago. So now that I have a beautiful hardcover, very fancy, Persuasion by Jane Austen, had to read it again. And of course, Jane Austen doesn't write sleepers except for Northanger Abbey, which is a terrible book. But Persuasion is so fantastic. I love it. In my opinion, it just doesn't compare to the current Netflix version. I really prefer the very old version with Kieran Hines. That's my favorite version. Yes, I'm also a Pride and Prejudice purist. Big surprise, right? Let's go all the way back to 1995. Let's do Colin Firth and Jennifer Ely, because that is just hands down the best. But, that's me. Another 5-star review that has, yes, even months later, I still talk about this book, and that is Conclave by Robert Harris. Okay, if you didn't see the movie, wow. Oh boy. Now, I was turned on to this book. Again, it's not a new book, but I was told about this book by my brother-in-law. Shout out to Jason Oz. And he said, you know what? This is just such a good book. And the last few pages could devastate you or terrify you or excite you. Like, I don't know what it's going to be, but the last 8 pages are pretty incredible. Well, I've got to read a book like that. I don't really care what it's about. I'm going to read that. So this one is about the succession of popes. It's completely within the Vatican. It is held, I mean, the whole book doesn't span a large period of time or a large period or a large space. It's all within the Vatican. It's their couple of days between when the Pope dies and when the next Pope is elected, and the process of electing a Pope. I'm not Catholic. I do have enough Catholic friends and some background in Catholicism and religion, so I was fuzzy on the idea, but wow. Okay, if you read it, come and tell me. It's one of those books. I want to discuss this with you. This is a fantastic one to have coffee, dessert. I mean, we might have to have a whole meal and discuss the book. And then if you go watch the movie, they really did stay true to the book. My husband came to the movie with me, and he was surprised that for something that can sound extremely boring, like electing a new pope, he was riveted for the whole thing. He never slept. He didn't fall asleep at the movies. For a movie that has zero violence, zero nudity, I'm pretty sure all the skin is from, like, I might be showing more skin right now than is in the whole movie. Exceptional writing. They kept every single piece that was important to the plot. And then the ending. Like, oh, if you are seeing this audio only and you're not seeing the video, I am grabbing my face because the ending, they just don't write stories like this very often or anymore. I'm actually kind of scared to read any more Robert Harris books because obviously they're fictional. But what if it was true? Kind of like, what if Jurassic Park was true? Oh, this. Anyway, so next book, written by a friend, actually. And this one did get 5 stars because I think it has incredible value and it's going to be a sleeper of a book and it will really find its stride sometime. And hopefully that's soon because I love my friend and I think that this is a fantastic book. The Introvert's Guide to Personal Branding by Tanya Goodall-Smith. How to put yourself out there without changing who you are. And as an introvert, I really resonated with this. I felt like she was speaking to me. She was speaking my language and also encouraging me to do the things that I have already learned to do. But if you have not been forced by business or any other thing to really examine how can I be true to myself in my business and still be an introvert and protect my energy, then this is definitely a good book for you. I probably should buy a couple of copies and just start handing them out because it is very powerful. You will know that this is a unique book because it has a bright pink cover. Don't judge a book by its cover. That's kind of my theme this year because I definitely judged A Gentleman in Moscow because I was really burnt on World War II books and the whole thing vibe was very, oh no, another World War II, black and white, Moscow, yada, yada, war, yada, yada, not happening. So this one it's bright pink, it's adorable. Don't sleep on it. It's an incredibly powerful book with lots of actually strategic and helpful things for any introvert to apply. I've been forced to apply most of them, but it was really encouraging to hear that I'm not alone and that I can protect my energy while also being true to who I am. So one of the things I am good at as an introvert is I'm good at one-on-ones. I'm good at small groups. And so no surprise, I really like to meet my clients in person. I really like to hear about their pets, their dreams, their house search, their kids if they have them, or careers. And I really like to relate face-to-face as much as I possibly can. That's my superpower. And so I lean into that as much as I can. And then I avoid large gatherings because for the most part, large gatherings drain me extremely. It takes a long time to recover. There's not a lot of benefit to it for me. Now, this one, I did give it 5 stars. I'm kind of waffling on it, but I'm going to stick with my 5 stars because I think there's someone out here who can take this book as the raw material it is and turn it into something great. So if you have connections in publishing or to other writers or maybe a playwright or a screenplay writer, something like that. This is a true story. It's called Bold Spirit, Helga Estby's Forgotten Walk Across Victorian America. And is a true story. I picked up this book from my grandma's estate, written by Linda Lawrence Hunt. So Helga Estby lived in Spokane, Washington. And she saw a newspaper article offering $10,000 if 2 women would walk across the United States and show up in New York. Now there was a time frame involved and there were some requirements involved, and she did it. She and her adult daughter walked from Spokane, Washington to New York City, and then found out, I can't tell you. You're gonna have to read the book. So this is a work of, it's historical fact. And there is some conjecture put in there because there's not a lot of original material that has made it. But this was done in, I'm going to mess up the years now, so I'm terribly sorry, but I think the early 1900s. It's when women were getting away from wearing long skirts and beginning to wear shorter bicycle skirts that showed their ankles, and so it was so scandalous. So if anyone has connections to screenplays, playwrights, or other publishing, I think this would be a fantastic foundational book for some historical fiction or perhaps a play. There's a lot in it. And so I'm still going to stand by those 5 stars because I think it will help other people find it. All right, 5 stars. Even though it is a short story, it's The Answer is No by Frederick Bachman. And this sort of pairs along with the other book about the power of being an introvert, because the main character just is an introvert, and the answer is no. He just says no until one day someone doesn't let him say no, and the conversation doesn't stop there, and the amazing personal growth that happens because someone forced their way into his world. So it is a short story, 68 pages. It's very easy to read in an afternoon or even just a half hour, and you got to try it. If you like Frederick Bachman at all, this short story is worth it. Okay, back to nonfiction. The business world is built on probably 20 books that everyone says and that you think, oh, I should read it eventually. So if you have a handmade business, if you have a little baby business, if you have a little side hustle, if you have anything that brings in any money at all, yeah, you got to read Profit First. Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. I've been told to read it from even previous industries that I was in, and I didn't listen. I wish I did. I wish I had started applying this book a lot sooner. It's very simple, and he front loads the book with all of the inspiration. So if you are not inspired by the end of the 5th chapter, I will be surprised. He also has a lot of actual tools and worksheets in there. So I do suggest getting the physical book. If you get the audiobook or the Kindle book, then you have to go to the website and download resources. And if that's your thing, you want to keep it all digital, great. I found it incredibly helpful for my mindset as well as the structure of my business. So Profit First, go apply it. It's true. I wish I'd read this 10 years ago, but here we are. And gosh, there were some other books that got 4 stars, but after a couple of months, I'm thinking maybe they were worth more, right? And so I'm going to say this one, The Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidara. It's also not new. It's been recommended me for a while. Unreasonable hospitality is about meeting your clients where they are and doing something unexpected that might not be in your sphere, but it was within your power to do. And it was pretty darn amazing. It is a story of Will Guidara's journey from hospitality school to having the #1 restaurant in the world. And so sometimes some of the restaurant stuff is like, oh, okay, well, it's a nice story, but this doesn't apply to me. But along the way, there are little pieces like, oh, that's applicable to anybody, whether you have a hot dog stand, whether you have a real estate business, whether you're a full-time artist, or whether you're an accountant, right? Because it's really all about seeing people, hearing beyond the question, hearing the little things that they say, and then seeing what you can do to just surprise them. And I get to do that all the time because people drop a lot of hints when we're just touring homes, or, you know, we see this property, but then we see that property, and they start talking about, oh, this has room for all of my cast iron stuff, but this one has room for a dog. I'm like, oh, did you have a dog? No, but I would love one someday. It's little things like that where I get a chance to hear a lot of things about my clients, and then I like to surprise them with their with little gifts near the end. So I loved it. It just really spoke to my heart. Confirmation of hearing people is really important, and we're on the right track. And if all industries did this just a little bit better, like even just 1% more, we would probably have a lot of happy customers. So that's what I'm going to leave you with for 2024. Out of 38 books, these are really the highlights of all of that. And I'm not saying there weren't valuable books. There were some other really interesting books that I read throughout the year. But, I mean, this is a podcast about real life and real estate. And my real life is I drive a lot. And I love to read books. Actually, if you have a book that you just think is so fantastic, whether that's fiction or sci-fi or business or whatever. And I would love to hear your recommendations. What has captivated you that you still think about 6, 9, or 12 months later? Because last year I told you how Dune had captivated my imagination, and I really didn't expect that. So I'm up for anything. And especially if the narrator has an accent, I'm in even more. Australian, English, even Canadian. They're fun to listen to too. So thank you so much for listening to this very real life episode, Real Life and Real Estate. I'm Nikki Robbs. And if you are looking for your forever home or your first home or your dream home, Tacoma, Puyallup, this whole area, Kitsap County, King, Thurston, I would love to talk to you. Now's the time to be setting up plans and start thinking about what do we need to do next. I'd love to meet you, introduce you, and maybe we can also talk about books. So have a great day, everybody. Big thanks to Will Robbs for editing this and making sure that everything goes swimmingly. Thanks, bud. Talk to you later.